Give me a sense as to how you define the Black News Channel brand.
The Black News Channel brand is, our brand promise really is to serve an audience that's been underserved for so long in the media. And, that's what we set out to do on a daily basis, to put, people, voices, stories on the air that you won't see in mainstream media.
You had the misfortune of coming in during the pandemic, as well as the protests regarding social injustice within the country. Has that altered the way Black News Channel focuses and looks at delivering the news to its consumers?
Well, if you were drawing the play up in the huddle, you definitely wouldn't launch an all-news channel during the middle of a pandemic and on the verge of all of this social injustice. But I think that the Black News Channel has been able to, take those stories plus the economy issue. Those stories, they all disproportionately affect the Black community. And for us, it's really about shining a light on, that particular issue and that disproportionate effect that it has on the community. Why you wouldn't draw it up that way, I certainly believe that the timing for us has been very fortuitous.
You mentioned that you're sort of covering content and news stories that others may not cover. How big a gap is there for the Black News Channel to fill?
I think the gap is closing. It's certainly with the events of this year. I'm sure you've noticed, news channels are paying, closer attention to the Black community. So the gap is certainly closing. It's not as big as it used to be, but I do believe that there's still a community out there that's underserved. Our community is underserved.
Let's focus specifically on the news networks. Obviously, you worked at CNN and you saw how the news was presented back in the day, maybe a decade ago. We used to say the news was unbiased. They didn't take a side, but has that changed now?
I definitely think that the proliferation of news networks has spawned this kind of partisan way of covering the news. And it's, what I tell people all the time is that, you should read as many newspapers as you can. You should watch all of the news networks, and then you can formulate your own opinion, because there is an agenda with all of the cable news networks, and it's very apparent.
Has the industry made inroads with regards to inclusion and diversity within its higher rankings?
I don't think it has. I don't think it's moved quickly enough. Certainly with this, with the George Floyd situation, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that really the world stopped. There has been a more attention paid to hiring and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Most of the media companies have now hired these, executives, diversity, equity, inclusion executives in their ranks. My question is, why didn't you do that before? Why does it take a man being murdered on television, for these companies to act? And that's really been my frustration. I still don't believe that there are enough, there's enough representation at the highest ranks of all of these companies. So I think that more work has to be done. It's good that there's a light that's been shined on it and things are happening, but we still have a long way to go.